You know what would have been really funny is if in the final battle, because they say that Bloodsport put Superman in the ICU, after Starro's unleashed, Superman comes,
Yeah.
and then immediately a starfish just lands on his face.
Oh, shit.
And then it's like, which one do we fight?
Yeah. Split up. Where are my kryptonite bullets? I brought the wrong gear.
What is happening there, Reject Nation? Greg and John here. Today we are going to watch From the King, Eric Voss over at New Rockstars, Suicide Squad, Easter eggs, breakdown, the galore, the master doing his job. We literally just a few minutes ago finished our live stream spoiler talk for the Suicide Squad. Big thank you to everyone who joined in, all those who contributed to the super chats as well. It was a wonderful, wonderful discussion. It went on for almost 2 hours, so really in-depth talk. But there's one thing we know Eric Voss for doing is constantly showing us things that no matter how long we talk about it, we don't
pick up on.
Things we did not catch.
No matter how wily and intellectual we think ourselves to be, Eric always notices more.
Let's do this, people. I'm so excited.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, a thrilling bloodbath on an island of broken toys. From the gory visual details to the music to the DC Easter eggs and cameos, I'm gonna break down this film scene by scene to appreciate the deeper reasons why this movie feels like such a redemption. And to celebrate the Suicide Squad, we have some new merch. Our latest obsession.
We gotta talk before whatever you buy,
damn,
and I'll buy one. All right.
Right.
Jaws poster. I want that. Nom nom nom. We've got a whole bunch of different colors.
I want that one.
And a brand new nerdy streetwear hoodie.
I
And
will
more stuff on the
default
way,
to the
check out
King
these
Shark
Suicide Squad
one
exclusives
that
at
I
NewRockstarsMerch.com.
like
So the film opens on
equally.
Savant, a lesser-known DC villain played here by Michael Rooker, who worked alongside James Gunn in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, along with Sean Gunn and Sylvester Stallone, who voices King Shark. Here, Gunn frames Savant reflected in a grimy puddle at first, which is similar to the murky water he ends up bleeding out into. The music we hear is Folsom Prison Blues, Johnny Cash's anthem for the incarcerated, giving some hope for redemption and others accepting that they are beyond it.
One of the first things we were talking about was like, what was the purpose of the opening shot? And you gave a really good answer on that. I didn't actually think about how that is foreshadowing the death, because like we kind of view the first Team 1 as like an own short story about a Suicide Squad team. How the bookend with like he kills the bird, and then at the end of it, his story, the bird's eating
lunches
him.
on what's
Yeah.
left of his head.
But then using the puddle as kind of foreshadowing of that is an interesting detail. One thing that neither one of us picked up on.
It's a nice little dovetail, it's a nice little circle around, and the movie's full of those. To start off on one's perfect.
And such is the case for Savant here, who cruelly kills a bird. Trigger warning here if you love birds like I do. Yeah, notice how right on the moment of death, the music shifts from stereo in the mix of the movie to diegetic in the scene. So we're leaving
Lot of
Savant's
that throughout
escapist
this.
fantasy of freedom, symbolized by the bird, to death in captivity, just like how Savant will die in prison. The doctor who implants a detonator chip is played by John Ostrander, writer of the Suicide Squad comics that Gunn wanted to capture the spirit of with this film. Really the reason why this movie can exist. Rick Flag returns in the 2016 Suicide Squad, which this movie is kind of a soft reboot of. We're bringing back Rick Flag, Harley Quinn, Amanda Waller, and Captain Boomerang, but no one else. However, this movie doesn't erase anything that happened in the DC films prior, and I would argue celebrates the best parts of those movies. So joining Flag's group is Boomerang, as well as TDK, an adaptation of the one-joke character Arm Fall Off Boy, Javelin, a Green Lantern villain, Mongal, an alien warrior and daughter to Superman villain Mongul, Blackguard, aka Richard or Dick Hertz, who's a villain to Booster Gold, and Weasel, played by Sean Gunn in motion capture. Weasel's bright blue eyes appear to be distorted, askew versions of Sean Gunn's.
Oh, wow.
Love that.
Of course, Harley Quinn.
What are you doing back in prison house?
I got road rage in a bank.
Now, the 2016 film ended with Jared Leto Joker freeing Harley from prison, but Birds of Prey established that they had broken up. And notice how her jacket now reads Live Fast Die Clown, replacing her jacket in the 2016 film that read Property of the Joker,
There
just a
you
cool way
go.
of reflecting her new independence from him. Similarly, her shoulder tattoo
Yeah,
that previously
Property of
read
No
Property
One.
of the Joker now reads Property of No One. Savant's rap sheet lists vigilantism, kidnapping, extortion, destruction of property, attempted homicide, and production of illegal weapons. Mongal's lists her as alien and lists mass homicide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, destruction of property, aiding and abetting, and threatening an official. And I love how all of Waller's aides take bets on who's gonna die first, just like we all did the first time we saw the cast. John, what questions TDK's name?
Your name is Letters? All names are letters, dickhead.
Similar joke to the one in Infinity War,
That's a made-up word.
What was made up?
which was a line written by Taika Waititi for that film, the same guy who later delivers the core theme of this film as the original Ratcatcher. Harley loves Javelin's German accent.
American women all love accents.
We do. Because we don't got none.
Margot Robbie is, of course, Australian. She is doing a heavy Brooklyn accent as Harley here. Now, Weasel seems to drown.
The Weasel is dead! I repeat, the Weasel is dead!
Yeah, notice how on Economos' screen, he only now marks Weasel in red, basing it on Savant's call, not when he actually would have expired moments earlier in the water. This explains how they considered this character dead, despite his later survival in the post-credit scene. And by the way, in that moment, he rises under a full moon, calling back Blackguard's misplaced fear that he was a werewolf.
That's so funny because the second time I watched this, I was thinking to myself, like, did something have gone off if he actually did die?
when
Wouldn't they know?
When they have like vitals on them or something.
I love how in the background they are taking care
Yeah.
of that criticism that one would have on a rewatch.
That's good script supervision.
Damn, that's a great attention to detail.
Harcourt's screen makes it seem like TDK's attack is going to be epic and clear the beach, like Yondu's Yaka arrow, but instead they just slowly inch their way in normal human walking speed up the beach to just pester the soldiers. Yeah, this is the moment that the tide really turns in this battle and they start dying off one by one, and Flag and Harley realized that their group was set up to be a diversion so that the other group could take the lead in the mission.
During our live stream, one of the most talked about things was actually the fact that they killed off Boomerang so early on. And just to reiterate this really quick, I think it's really effective that they killed everyone off at the very top of the film because it really does set the stage that anyone can die. Killing off one of your main characters from the previous one really helps establish that tone quite a lot because everyone's death is kind of amusing and funny that they're killing all of them off, but when Boomerang dies, it kind of gets you in the heart a little bit. There's even like a shift in music at that point where everything's kind of fun and wacky, but when he dies, it takes on a bit more of a heavier tone.
Well, yeah, and this also sets you up to be very wary and suspicious of the surroundings, your teammates, and the people back home sending you on the mission. You know, just through all the different elements that lead to the bloodbath.
Savant's head forms the title, a trick that James Gunn uses throughout this film, kind of a visual equivalent of making music diegetic, making something that normally is cinematically expository, instead coming from within the scene. And of course, Team 2 is Bloodsport, Peacemaker, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, and Polka-Dot Man. All villains are anti-heroes of ranging notoriety in the DC world. On Economos' screen, TDK is listed in critical condition, so not dead yet. And on Savant's corpse, another yellow card shows up eventually being killed.
Bring him
Waller
back.
blackmails Bloodsport with his daughter's legal troubles.
A stopwatch.
A stone.
A style watch. You can watch TV on it.
She said star latch. And ironically, that is what he has to face by the end of the movie, a latching star fish. Bloodsport and Peacemaker bicker over hitting a target more center than the other.
I use smaller bullets. What? They go inside your bullet holes without even touching the side.
This is exactly what Bloodsport does to Peacemaker in their final duel. King Shark reads his book. This is The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James, a psychological study that looks at commonalities in different religions across traditions. They use King Shark's original name in this movie, Nananue, and Waller says that people believe he was the descendant of an ancient shark god. Maybe Nananue was given this book to see if there is any cross-cultural validity to his divinity, but then again, he doesn't know what he's reading it upside down. They pass this female inmate. This is actually Kaleidoscope. It's confirmed in the movie's credits. This is a villain to Superboy in the DC comics. Ratcatcher 2 has a photo of her father in the cell, so Taika was actually with us in this movie since the beginning. She's always sleeping in this movie, which is a fun character quirk, but she later says,
I was having the most wonderful dream.
I like to think she could be dreaming about her old man, and then she sleeps all the time in order to keep him fresh in her memory.
I just love, I forget the actress's name. I feel like such an asshole. Do you know it?
Daniela Melchior for Ratcatcher
Don't say
2?
it with a question mark. You know for sure what her
Are
name
you
is.
thinking of Ratcatcher 2?
Yes,
what I'm
I
asking.
said actress.
Well, there are other actresses in the movie.
But we're talking about Ratcatcher.
You could be talking
She
about the
did a
little
great
girl
job,
version.
but she had a lot of heart. It was
She
very
was so
sincere. Let's
great and
move
she
on.
made me cry.
John Gunn also cameos as Calendar Man, a DC villain arguably best known for his Hannibal Lecter-style role in Batman The Long Halloween. To the right of him is this guy with the ace tattoo. This is Double Down, a villain to The Flash. His face is scarred because a mysteriously cursed deck of cards scarred his skin, allowing him to detach the cards from his body and then use them to slice people. Corto Maltese is an island nation in the DC world that appears in The Dark Knight Returns as a place Superman is sent on a mission and then the USSR nukes it. But this place also showed up in Tim Burton's Batman as a place Vicky Vale went on assignment assignment. The name of the fortress
cool.
is Jotunheim, which in Norse mythology is the home of the giants and the frost giants. You'll know it from the Marvel world, as home realm of Loki.
Crossovers.
But in the DC comics, it is a fortress that was built by Nazis, but in a different country of Kurak, fictional Middle Eastern country, and Jotunheim was destroyed by Rick Flag in the first Suicide Squad mission. Waller explains how a military coup executed the whole ruling Herrera family. And you can notice how behind the father's hanging body, you can see the feet of a toppled statue that probably would have been his grandfather or great-grandfather, destroyed when this coup took place.
Damn. Wow. That is a detail.
Damn, Mr. Voss.
That is a detail.
Jesus Christ.
Jeez, man.
That is a new Rockstars detail if I didn't know one.
Hashtag set design.
Just like quick little 8mm footage film reel.
Look how much they thought about
And then
it.
he's just like, but what's that? Pause it.
Pause it. How did you even see that?
How'd you get this out on time? If you're watching
How
a
is this
movie
video
like this.
not an hour long?
As Bloodsport's team hikes through the jungle, the framing initially hides Polka-Dot Man mostly behind an alleyway in order to delay the reveal of his glowing rash. But you do see him glowing very briefly, very subtly on the beach at the start of the hike. But then of course later, when he gets engorged with them and he has to vomit them out, the few that float away burn the nearby plants. Just a little tease of how incendiary these things are when they're used. Waller orders Bloodsport to rescue Rick Flag.
Rick Flag?
I know, you both served on
Special forces in Iraq that took down Avril Kadam.
Again, correct, that fictional DC country. And Avril Kadam is a general who overtook the country in some Deathstroke comics. And yeah, interesting here in the scene, a few crew people were left visible in the background. Whoopsie! So they raid the camp and they slaughter friendly militants. Polka-Dot Man collapses the watchtower and knows how one of the dots burns a hole through the guy's chest, and Peacemaker's pacifist dove icon is appropriately stained with the blood of his victims. We see some archive footage of astronauts with Starro. Starro is a longtime DC parasitic hive mind who has plagued the Justice League. Actually, a mechanized version of Starro showed up in the Snyder Cut.
You know what would have been really funny is if in the final battle, because they say that Bloodsport put Superman in the ICU, after Starro's unleashed, Superman comes, shit, and then immediately a starfish just lands on his face.
Oh, shit.
And then it's like, which one do we fight?
Yeah. Split up. Where are my kryptonite bullets? I brought the wrong gear.
Then it would have been Suicide Squad versus the Justice.
Hey, that's part 3. Let's do it.
That would be cool.
Part 3 is Superman leaves the ICU for the one thing on his mind.
Notice how the astronauts immaturely pose pretending to smoke and they give these thumbs up? They're evoking the infamous Abu Ghraib prison torture photos. In the footage, after feeding on the consciousnesses of 3 hosts, Starro has grown noticeably larger, explaining its gigantic size after latching onto thousands of Corto Maltesians. Luna courts Harley Quinn in a kind of Evita scenario, but really as a further FU to the United States. But notice how this romantic montage switches suddenly from the surreal back to the real. Again, the switch to diegetic music reflects the return to reality. Harley ends up killing Luna out of a promise to herself to kill any boyfriend who gave off red flags, referencing her growth from her past toxic relationship with the Joker. Polka-Dot Man explains how his dots are an interdimensional virus.
My mother was a scientist at Star Labs, and she was obsessed with turning me and my brothers and sisters into superheroes.
Star Labs, of course, a recurring facility in the DC world. It's where Cyborg's father, Silas Stone, works and shows up in the Flash a lot. And he reveals that he sees his mother everywhere. My favorite shot of the film, especially with the mom version of the shark pawing at the butterfly. But also, look at that. Sebastian the rat is also turning the mother. He's wearing the mother's glasses.
I never noticed that.
I didn't the attention to detail both in this film and in this subsequent video is quite warming into my heart.
One of the times I've seen it on IMAX and I didn't catch that. It's hilarious.
It's okay. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
You guys didn't see my video where I did this interview with, is a short one with Margot, Robbie, and David Dastmalchian plays Polka-Dot Man, because we don't know what led Polka-Dot Man to being captured by Waller specifically and thrown into the, the journey that led him here. So I asked him if he'd ever want to do like a standalone movie, explore his origins. He revealed that he was diagnosed when he was younger with a disease called, develops like skin patches on your, develops like patches. Yeah, I was going to say it, John.
Oh, sorry.
Jeez.
Oh.
I remembered it. You know how hard it was to remember for me to remember the word vitiligo?
I thought
we talked about the interrupting. how often do I get the chance to say a big word?
Frequently lately. Your vocab is
Not enough.
huge these days.
Yo, how many people say the word vitiligo?
People who have it.
I'm not really lying to me. He even wrote it differently, so I knew how to remember
Oh,
it.
sorry.
Anyway,
I thought you didn't know.
It was
You appeared as though
personal
you didn't
for
know.
him. I was trying to explain it first in case the audience wasn't aware of what vitiligo.
It was all going so well.
Anyway, that's why the role was so personal for him, and he would love to do a solo movie to explore kind of the body horror elements and make something very personal from facts. You know what? I've already bought. Yeah, hire that woman again to talk with us.
Milton has a Peanuts Lucy keychain, which I like because he is kind of the Charlie Brown of this group. Rick Flag changes into a shirt with a cartoon rabbit holding a sign that translates to "Obstacles are opportunities," which you might interpret as a nod to James Gunn turning his temporary firing from Disney into this wonderful opportunity to revitalize the DCEU.
I would love it if that's why James Gunn put that in there.
It was
a little F-you situation.
And I think I can't remember what it was, but I think he said it was originally something else he thought would be too much, and then they landed on that. I mean, it does kind of look like a janky Bugs Bunny meets Mickey Mouse, so.
Waller references playing golf with Senator Cray, a nod to Senator Joseph Cray from Ostrander's Suicide Squad, who sold government contracts. And when Economos asks her if she'd really harm Bloodsport's daughter, she says,
You don't know half of what I would do, John.
maybe referring to the 2016 film when she offed pretty much all of her aides, making this a kind of threat to him. Cleo and Bloodsport share some memories of their fathers.
If I didn't finish a task right, he would dole out the punishment.
Yeah, notice how Peacemaker smirks here. Waller did say that both of them were trained from a young age to be killers by their dads, and the Peacemaker spin-off series that the second post-credit scene sets up will feature Robert Patrick as his father.
way.
They arrive at the La Gatita Amable, or the lovely kitten in Portuguese, and as Peacemaker enters, he bumps into this old man. This is a cameo by director Lloyd Kaufman, James Gunn's mentor from his days at Turner
no
Studios.
way.
Kaufman also cameos as a
Dang.
killed prisoner in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
And dancing on stage in red is a cameo by Palm Clementif, who plays Mantis in the MCU. Polka-Dot Man later sees the dancers around him as his mother, and I love how they keep the blue-tipped beard on the one on the left. And major props, by the way, to actress Lynn Ash for selling 11 distinct versions of the dancing mom. Now, Bloodsport surrenders himself and Flag and Peacemaker over to the authorities, knowing from his and Flag's shared combat experience and Peacemaker's similar upbringing that the three of them probably all know the Death's Touch maneuver. Then as they drive in to save Harley, Bloodsport makes fun of Peacemaker's helmet, calling it a toilet seat.
It's not a toilet seat, it's a beacon of freedom.
Remember, when we first met Bloodsport, he was cleaning the prison toilet seat, so really he was dissing Peacemaker's shiny helmet while complimenting his own skills at scrubbing something so good until it's that shiny. The guy torturing Harley Quinn responds to the text reading, "What are you doing?" with emojis indicating he is electrocuting a woman in a red dress, which brings him joy. Now the music that plays over Harley's escape is a mix of Just a Gigolo and I Ain't Got Nobody, the song that she was singing before. So now that it's playing in the audio mix, we're back in Harley's subjective point of view. So all of her kills are seen as super stylized, with all this surrealism taking the form of flowers and animated creatures, similar to how she would envision herself as Marilyn Monroe in Birds of Prey. You can see some cartoon rabbits spinning around her, and the birds that were following her are now a little scared of her. They hide behind the pillar as she exits. Even outside in the cab, the animation continues out of focus in the hallway back inside.
Again, this one thing that when I first saw this, one of the first things I said was I think James Gunn seamlessly hops in and out of perspectives throughout this whole movie in a way that only James Gunn can do. That's one of my favorite things about it. And as like picking up on the audio cues of the music is something that I didn't realize were probably playing a subconscious factor. That's so fascinating to me. Filmmaking.
So they brief the Thinker.
We fail the mission, you die.
If we find out any information you give us is false, you die.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
What? No.
Remember, in Suicide Squad, Mr. J had personalized plates. So another example of how Harley hates anything associated with him. They make it into the Jotunheim Tower, and you see German words line the walls. You see Die Karte de Butunft, or the map of reason. And then later, in another angle, Die Taten aller Menschen, or the actions of all humanity. I'm not certain, but since this tower was built by the Nazis, I'm assuming this is part of some sweeping progress-focused justification of their cruel human experimentation. And they find the horror show below glow with all these Starro drones and test subjects, and the Thinker reveals that this was an American-funded operation. And now when we see the NASA astronauts, the red, white, and blue of the flag patch is more saturated than it was in the footage before, recalling the huge flag in the opening minutes of this movie, reframing the whole mission as one to preserve America. Flag and Peacemaker fight over whether to release the hard drive to the public and the press, and Gunn shoots this fight in the reflection of the helmet. I love this shot, because somehow they kept the camera from appearing in the reflection, which is probably a mix of camera blocking, but also the helmet design, the way it was curved, but also probably a bit of VFX in there. Milton dies. And Bloodsport and Harley tragically barely remember him as being part of the group, which is super messed up because he just held the door open behind him for Harley to follow. The charges blow early, and when Nanaway's new friends attack him, bloody water gushes up, which is just like how it looked when the Great White was the attacker.
Oh, interesting.
And down below, he attacks the soldiers, biting off one's head, and is later seen gnawing the rest of the flesh off his skull. Bloodsport aristocats down the floors of the collapsing tower just in time to save Cleo with smaller bullets. Now, Giant Starro's rise from the debris is nuts, but I love how Gunn leans into the insanity with the Scott Pilgrim-style title text. Starro and all of its hosts scream at them, just like the scream in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And Bloodsport finally steps up as a leader, as Amanda Waller promised she would turn him into, but actually in this case, in spite of what Waller wants him to do in this moment. He helps Polka-Dot Man see Starro as his mom, gets him to burn off one of its legs to immobilize it, but he dies a superhero, just like how back in the briefing room he said he wanted to die on this mission. Bloodsport fights through the infected, and he pulls off pieces of his armor bit by bit to turn them into weapons until he runs out. A cool way of reflecting his character, stripping away his armor to become more vulnerable. Cleo beacons thousands of rats with composer John Murphy's amazing track called Ratism, as this also becomes a baptism for Bloodsport as the rats wash over him. And the music uses a children's
that's great. I love that. Ratism.
Javelin to spear Starro's eye, but really it's the rats who bring it down by gnawing at the nerve tissue. Though really, Starro's final words are pretty tragic.
I was happy, floating, staring at the stars.
Just a reminder that even Starro was once a lowly, innocent creature who was dragged into this fight by the real enemy, cruel, uncaring government interests. The final shot recalls James Gunn's shot of Drax in the closing moments of Guardians of the Galaxy when Drax pet Rocket to console him. But whereas that moment was about Rocket finally allowing someone else to connect with him, this is about the broken loner allowing himself to show compassion. I went deeper into this closing imagery and the post-credit scenes in a whole other video. Go check that out. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EAVoss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Loved it. Loved it. Amazing, amazing work, Eric Voss and team. I mean, I think that shot's great because clearly that's a core traumatic memory for Bloodsport of his upbringing with, you know, what his dad did to him. His dad made him, like, helped make him who he is, and then he's got a very specific memory associated with rats. And then here is like this whole arc that he has throughout this movie of becoming more vulnerable, doing some heroic steps, and then overcoming that fear. It's just a good character arc for the guy. I thought it was great. And Sebastian, #1 hero. Guys, subscribe to New Rockstars if you haven't done so already. You can subscribe to us, hit that like button. Check out our spoiler talk if you'd like. Go really in depth for quite a long time. Last but not least, let's do a
Lance Dorr.
Just switch to 0 on this.
If there's anybody who would be a perfect addition to a Suicide Squad, my friend, you've got the skills, you've got the tactical know-how, and you're good under pressure, Lance Dorr. Plus, you got that critical element of heart. You would probably be an anti-hero. Somebody brought into Bell Rev in the Suicide Squad and all that jazz for some kind of misunderstanding because you were trying to feed your family and keep the city free of fires. But you know what? You're also good at starting fires, and maybe that could be part of your Suicide Squad, you know, weaponry package of what you do physically to bring to the team. You know, Lance, I'm telling you, start committing some crimes. Get yourself arrested. You know, keep on pledging to the Patreon because
Can't quit.
we got a nicotine addiction developing over here. So we if you want this operation to crumble, it's all on you, Lance. I'm sorry.